Call this meeting to order. We are going to begin with the approval of the minutes. Councilmember Hancock. I approve also consent items. We are going to move these forward. Before we go into general business, I need to address someone that is in this room that I'm very unhappy with, Max Levy with the Sentinel. I would like to tell you publicly, the article that you wrote this morning about our police association, you talk about how much they spend and how many of those donations go to the telemarketing company. Well, some of these big charities, they have staff. They're able to pay their staff. So if you look at their payroll on some of these nonprofits, they're paying people. They are paying people to sit and make these outreach calls. Our police officers, this is a charity organization that is run by our police officers, and our police officers don't have time to sit on the phone and make calls themselves. But what you don't talk about is the 30% that they do keep. You don't talk about their shop with the cop events. In fact, I haven't seen you at one, not one. So if this is the kind of stuff you're gonna write, Max, I will come back with you with facts on every single story that you write against our police officers. That is crap, and you don't talk about anything that they do. Not one police officer gets a penny off of the money raised. So start writing about what that 30% goes to for the people of Aurora. We'll move into general business. Item 4A. Photo speed enforcement program update.
Good morning, I'm Lieutenant Chris Ampler from the Aurora Police Section. First slide, we'll talk about our current numbers from the beginning of the program. Currently, we have issued around 7,000 violations. 2,590 of those violations notices have been mailed. 241 violations are still being processed. We have a high number of rejected violations. That's 4,181,000 violations have been rejected. Those have been rejected for a variety of reasons. It can be either not a good license plate, no listing on the license plate, glare on the license plate, the view of the driver is obstructed. And we've also found that some of these issues are operator errors. So we've asked the vendor to do a deep dive into those statistics to find out if that's an issue that we need to address with additional training with the folks that we have out there running our vans. Current staffing, we only have 2 technicians. We're authorized 6. We have one that works during the day, one that works at night. Last time we spoke, we had one that we were onboarding. We onboarded that person, so we had 3, but one just left to go to court. So that's why we're down to 2 technicians. Some of our hiring efforts through January and February, we had 13 applicants for 3 vacancies we're trying to fill. 6 no responses to our request to schedule an interview. 7 were interviewed and received job offers. 5 declined job offers for a variety of reasons. 1 took a position as one of our CSRs. Another took a position with Aurora Water. We had some that decided they didn't want to leave their full-time current jobs to go to a contract job, which was only temporary or could possibly only be temporary if the program wasn't renewed. We had one that was in the background investigation phase. I found out yesterday that they've withdrawn from that process. So we've just lost another body that we were going to bring on. And then one is currently in the conditional job offer phase. In March, we had 19 applicants for 2 vacancies, which now is up to 3. 1 declined an interview offer. We have 9 applications pending for further consideration. We interviewed 9 applicants. 8 showed up for interviews. 1 was a no-show. 1 applicant has been sent to compensation review, while we have 7 others that we can use for future consideration, which we will move on in that process. For some of our efforts to supplement some of our staffing is we decided to take some of our professional staff and train them to operate the vehicles. So first we started with our community service representatives. We trained 7 of those, 1 officer pre-hire who's waiting to go into the academy, and 4 others from different assignments throughout the department. So far, 8 overtime shifts have already been worked, and 9 are scheduled for the future. We are noticing with this new staff that folks have a hard time calibrating the equipment. There's a lot of nuances to get that photo equipment up and running. And so we're finding that they're not producing as much, and then it takes time for them to get used to working that system to become quite proficient with it. So if someone who's just coming in for, let's say 2 shifts a month, they're having issues getting that equipment calibrated. So we're working through that issue. We've also had several equipment and vehicle issues. A flash was damaged in December. It took the vendor until March to get us a new flash. They didn't have any replacements. They've now rectified that problem and have spare flashes if that were to happen again. They also installed a camera cable in one of the vehicles, which overheats. So that is being fixed and corrected by the vendor. We were having ongoing memory card issues with one of the computers, so it would constantly shut down and have to be restarted, which was causing issues with generating summonses. They are attempting to correct that issue. And then also too, some of the other issues we've had is the vehicles have to be taken out of service for when they do training, because it's hands-on training with the vehicle, when they do routine maintenance, and also when we have yearly equipment certifications. Some of the cost and revenue breakdowns through June and December of last year, we only raised about $42,000. Expenses were almost 500 grand. So the city ended up paying 446,000 grand last year. And then this year, we received approximately 33 grand in revenue. Expenses already up to 121 grand. Again, the pocket for the city is 88 grand. So the total's almost about $500,000 that the city has paid for the program, when we've only made about 75,000 in citations. This program has been a helpful tool for us when it comes to being able not to have to take officers off the street and deploy them on some of our school zones and neighborhood traffic complaints or complaints that council gets. It has been a helpful tool to address some of those issues. However, as you can see, we've had quite amount of significant issues that have affected the program. That's questions.
I don't have any questions, but this thing seems about as useful as a chicken wire raft to me. And we're going nowhere with it. I think that because our numbers are up in hiring in the PD, I think in no time, maybe we can add, 1 or 2 to our traffic division. And I mean, it's very important, right? I mean, the number one, we just did the Ward 5 town hall Tuesday night. And I mean, it's overwhelmingly what we are hearing about is traffic and speeding. But this, I mean, this is obviously, I mean, we should say we tried, but clearly we've failed.
So told me why it's not working. Tell me how to get it to work, because this is really an important, something that's really important for this city. That I just, as chairman said, chairwoman said, I get a lot of complaints. The biggest complaints I get right now about traffic. And so, told me why it's not working, but tell me how it's going to work, how to make it work. And I had thought when we decided to do this, that the vendor would be supplying the people, that they would work for the vendor. So if that's not the case, what do we need to pay to get people if we're not able to get people with what we're currently paying? Is the fact that it's contract and not regular employment, is that the problem?
So yes, that is our biggest issue, is staffing. And I do believe that the issue is the fact that this is, they don't know whether or not they're going to have a job at the end of the program. Okay. So I think that's an issue of us keeping folks. I know I lost a supervisor to the program because of that same issue. So I think if we had full staff, to address your issue regarding the vendor providing.
Just like what you said, that's a recommendation that should have been in your presentation next time. Tell us how it's going to tell us what changes need to be done to make it work. This is a force multiplier to be able to position those in places where we have patterns of problems in terms of speeding, in terms of reckless driving, where we just don't, even when we're fully staffed in terms of the traffic division, I'm not sure we're going to be able to really replicate that, what this can do if it's working.
Yeah, I believe that we would need to fully staff the program. There also would need to be an ordinance change, because the ordinance says a city employee has to be running the van. So right. If you wanted the vendor to supply that staffing, we would have to change the ordinance. There's also new technology that's out there. I've heard that there's now just like unmanned trailers that they can set up. So would actually not have to staff.
Is that consistent with state law?
That state law has changed that we can now do that.
Okay.
That changed last year.
So, if I may, so the citations are only, they're capped at $40. And so we have staffing of 6 allocated for 6, but the reality is that we need more people. We need to hire more people than just the 6 to be fully covered and to cover 7 days a week. And so we have to really do an analysis of the actual cost that it would be per, to have fully staffed and have somebody in a van for each shift. And, understanding that it's capped at $40, the ticket is capped at $40. And additionally, some of the locations which we received complaints on and that they don't have a lot of high traffic. And so there's a certain number of paid citations that will have to be issued in order to break even. And so these vans, just the vans themselves without the personnel, are over $27,000 each per month to run. And so we'd have to really do a cost analysis. I'm not sure that just getting the bodies in place would be enough, and not having the contract employees would be enough. I think we need further analysis on the actual cost, and that we don't have.
Do we have any information about Denver? They utilize this program.
They do utilize the photo vans. They do, and I don't have any specific information on that. I don't know, Chris, if you have any, or on Denver's vans. Do you have any?
I don't. But I know they're also using, they also have photo red light. So they're using that system also. I saw a lieutenant from one of their traffic unit last week, and he said they're also having issues with staffing their vans also.
And I 100%, these photo vans are for force multiplier. And to be able to say, hey, we have this van, we have a complaint, and to be able to say, hey, we have this van, and we're gonna put this van, this radar van in your neighborhood, that is huge. But when there's not a lot of, when the traffic is minimal, then that, deploying the ban, that's when the revenue, cost analysis is going down, because it's costing us money to put it in a place where the violations are not great. It's all based on the number of violations and the number of paid violations that we actually get.
Certainly, I mean, it doesn't have a deterrent effect in and of itself.
So, and absolutely, that's another piece, is that it has, can absolutely have a deterrent effect, because I know that it shows up on your, it can show up on your GPS when you're traveling, because I noticed that it showed up on mine. So it's coming. And then there is an easel that we put up to show that it's there. So what we can't put the dollar amount is the deterrent effect that it has for people slowing down. So I really love the tool. I love the photo van tool. And we have increased revenue and actual dollars that increase from last month, but it's not going to be enough for us to catch up. And so we have an opportunity now within the contract, because the vendor is selling the company to another vendor. And as part of our contract, and Megan can speak to it if I'm not saying this correctly, but that we have to agree to basically transferring over to this new company. And so we have an opportunity now to get out of the contract and explore other options, but to get out of this contract so that, because the contract ends in July. And so we're just going to get more and more and more in the hole every month until we can get this sorted, if we don't take this opportunity.
I'm just really concerned about the cost differential here, because it seems like we're just bleeding money on this thing. I know, I understand the benefits, and having seen the photo vans, it does change behavior, but with the issues that you're having with the technology and the money that's being bled out, I'm having a hard time reconciling them.
And if I could say one more thing too, is that this team and the efforts that they have made, to try to fix the issues and resolve it, increase the revenue. I just really have to give them a lot of credit because, you know, it seems like a sinking ship, but I think that this team has done everything that they can do at this late date. In fact, Lieutenant Amsler, when we were discussing it a few days ago, he said, I just feel like we're cursed. We're cursed because every time we've got applicants and we've got a good pool of applicants, it just, people start withdrawing and don't fully participate, or there's issues with the mechanical issues of the bands. Even one of the things that was concerning to me is that Lieutenant Amsler said we have to put these bands down, each of them for a week in the month of March in order to make sure they're to do the certification calibration. And this has to be done once a year. And I'm like, well, I don't understand why we're doing this in March when we didn't start this program until July. So they're taking up this, you know, to get this certification, this company, we're taking up a week, putting these bands down for a week to do a certification in our pilot program that we shouldn't be doing. So it just seems like one thing after another has just like knocked us down. So I just wanted to say that about this.
Do you have confidence that the new vendor is going to be better than this group? Or what do you know about the new vendor that's going to take over?
I don't know anything about the new vendor.
I think we do go forward with another contract, because we have an opportunity for a new contract, right? The vendor has to be responsible for hiring. The vendor has to be responsible for staffing these vans. It shouldn't be on the city.
My concern there is that if we put it on the vendor, that further raises our costs. I mean, they're not gonna just absorb that, you know, include that in their cost. That's gonna come back on us. The biggest problem is, right, it was the will of the voters to get rid of the photo radar. So the point that Chief Morris is making is that because we have these in areas, if we have these vans at Iliff and Chambers, at, you know, Alameda and Peoria, if we have these vans in high impact areas, which is where our fatality accidents are happening, we wouldn't be upside down financially, but we made an agreement to only bring this program with the vans and still honor the will of the voters and to have this program to protect our schools and our elderly communities. And so I don't know that with those being such low traffic areas, I think the point is, even if we're fully staffed, I don't know that we get there financially. And I'm not willing to make the decision to change it and start having these photo radar vans in those high traffic areas, because again, it goes back to the will of the voters. So I have a problem with moving this forward. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, I do as well.
I think the two of us would like to end this contract, not renew this contract. I'm happy to let it go to full council, Mayor, if that's what you would like to see. But I think the two of us are singing a different tune now on this program.
That's good.
If I could-
Question.
So ahead.
So it sounds like kind of you were suggesting that this is a good time to stop it while we have this opportunity with the contract change. And that if we were gonna use this tool in the future, we could stop this contract and look into a better tool. Is that?
We can completely explore other options.
So if we offer to the contract, we just said, it's gotta be cost neutral to the city. And here's what you have to do. Now, either they're gonna do it or not do it.
Right.
But I would make that one, you know, to say, because right now there's no downside for the contract. Contractor wins. We're losing right now, the contractor's winning, because all the things that were mentioned that are problematic, i.e. staffing, i.e. The technology, there's no downside for the contractor.
Right.
It was a downside for us, but there's no, so make it to where that if the contractor wants to go forward, then the contractor has to assume risk. And if in fact the technology doesn't work, if in fact they can't staff, they'll come up with a, you know, put it on them. So I would give it one more chance. So I would like to move forward to work on it before it goes to council.
Is this a 30-day note? What kind of notice do we have to give them to not renew our contract?
I don't remember exactly, Megan Platt with the city attorney's office, what the termination language is, but we did receive a notice from them regarding their intent to assign the contract to this new company, essentially that's buying conduit. And we have not signed that paperwork or made any sort of agreement to that. So I think it would be sort of a negotiation with them to exit the current contract and either renegotiate a new one per the mayor's suggestion, which based on what I'm hearing, the mayor saying we would also need to update the ordinance in order to do what the mayor wants to do in the contract, which would probably be the first piece of that. And then explore whether this new vendor would be willing to negotiate the contract terms that the city wants to in sort of a new contract with the assignment provision, or completely just terminate the contract completely. We would just pay them any invoices outstanding and then move forward with another vendor if we wanted to go out for another RFP or however you all wanted to move forward.
Well,
I could say, my recommendation and would be that we, utilize the option that we have to not continue with the new vendor. We don't know anything about them, and that we get to work on exploring and seeing what other options are out there that's in line with what council's looking for. But that we separate completely from this company in the process that we're in right now, and then move forward with specific direction on what we'll be looking for in a new vendor.
I'm gonna say, weigh in either way. I don't want to make a decision on this today. I would like to see this come back on my agenda next month. And between now and next month, I'd like to see a draft ordinance. I don't know, Mayor, if you're wanting to sponsor it. I'd like to see a draft ordinance of what that looks like and what that change needs to be made in the city. I would also like to see, Jason, how quickly can we get an RFP together for a program like this?
Do that.
Okay, so I'd like to see how long that will take. And then if we can start discussions now, Megan, with whoever this new vendor is gonna be buying out the old company, and see what, are they even willing to staff the vans? Is that something they offer? We know that this current one would have, but is that even something that they would offer? And what risks are they willing to assume? And is there any give on the $30,000 a month price tag for each van? I would like to see all of those things come back on my agenda next month. And then I feel like we can make an honest decision.
Well, I agree with you in terms of terminating the existing contract. And so, my philosophy as mayor right now is that I don't bring things forward myself. If I can't convince a member of this policy committee to bring it forward, it's not going to go forward. But if we can do something that's certainly more in line with the needs of the city as opposed to the needs of the vendor. This is heavily biased. This contract is heavily biased to the Denver, to the vendor at the expense of the city. And so, but I'm willing to work with the policy committee, members of policy between now and.
Megan, you can put Councilmember Hancock and I as sponsor and co-sponsor on that. That's fine. And we're not, we're certainly not looking at this as a revenue generating tool. That was the biggest thing that I was against. We have to get to a net zero on this program, and we have to do it quickly. We just have to. So, if all those things will come forward, come back on next month's agenda, we can have this conversation again next month. And I think that's kind of where we'll leave the direction.
Understood.
Good.
And just one last thing, I have a concern about, to your point about the vendor is the one that's getting the most benefit from this. With all the issues with technology that happened with this current iteration, it would seem to me that the vendor we should have some kind of protections for us with all of these delays and damaged equipment that didn't seem to be our fault. It had to do with the technology. that there should have been some protection for us because these delays were
And that's what we need.
extremely costly for us.
That's just a point of clarification.
Yeah.
So your position to terminate this contract, and then we'll see if we can find something else. Is that right?
Yeah, because we would have to enter into a new contract anyways, right, with the new company?
I
So
think it
yes.
would look really different too, based on the ordinance changes if the mayor wants, what that contract would look like, especially if you're trying to utilize this new vendor for staffing. I think it would just be a whole new contract, and the terms of this are up. We don't have to accept the assignment. We can look at this company that just bought Conduit or elsewhere.
Okay, so then yes, Mayor.
Yes.
So, would you be interested in do we need to bring an ordinance? Better to have discussions first and then bring an ordinance forward, or bring the ordinance forward now to basically set the ground rules going forward?
I think the ordinance would be helpful to have first to give guidance as to what exactly you want to see enforced in the ordinance. And then we can build a contract around what the ordinance provisions are and specifically what the enforcement objectives are in the ordinance.
Can we try to set a meeting with you and the mayor and I to have this discussion before next month's public safety meeting?
Yeah.
That we can be clear about this? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so then that is the direction for now is to terminate the existing contract, but not terminate the program completely at this point.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have an effective date in mind that you want that termination to be effective? Because I think we can do it, you know, through July, which is the actual end of the contract. Or if you want to say, we're done May 1, we're not going to sign your assignment provision. Just from a date perspective, do you want to just see this full contract out, or do you want to terminate immediately?
Just go with whatever minimum notification requirements are.
Well, that's why I wanted to know the minimum notification requirement to terminate, and I think whatever that is what I think we should give.
And if there are penalties.
Right.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I know, I mean, if we continue with the contract, we're gonna be settling, $500,000 in the hole.
Right, yeah,
So, we need to sever the contract
Yeah.
as soon as we can.
that's
Because
what we're
my
doing.
understanding, there's not a termination clause in the contract. It's, we're utilizing this, hey, we've sold the company, and the contract says that, they require our approval to
For the assignment.
to assign that over. So essentially, that's the avenue we'll be taking and saying, no, we're not going to agree to be transferred to the setup company.
Okay. Okay. Megan, I guess also with that information, what are the termination requirements?
I think it probably has, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it has pretty standard 30-day, notice requirements that we can utilize and then say, we're not agreeing to this assignment. We're giving you your 30-day notice that we're going to terminate. I think that's probably what it says. I'll have to go back and look at it after the meeting today. And then I'm happy to reach out to you and just verify that that's the case. And then that's how you want to move forward.
That would be great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
4B, update on the e-discovery and case management system.
Julie Heckman, Deputy City Attorney. We just wanted to come and give council an update on how we're doing with both the case management system for our internal workflow for the prosecutor office, and then also a part of that is the electronic discovery. So happy to report that we are meeting Judge Day's court order that we do all electronic discovery by March 8th. We're continuing to work closely with the vendor that we hired to put the case management system into place. They were not ready to fully implement the case management system, which allows our office to be electronic, but we were able to get the electronic discovery part going. And then we're filling in and getting the case management system as quickly as we can. So we've been scanning and scanning and scanning the hard type of paper files. And just want to thank council again for the funding, and also thank all of our partners that we've had to call upon to hurry to get the discovery part done, which included court IT, city IT, 911, the police department, code enforcement, and animal services. So it's taken a lot of people to stop and try to get us going with all the different documentation and also the digital evidence that we need to get out. So
I can only imagine how much scanning that's been.
it's been a lot.
Awesome update.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 4C, courtroom 10 renovations.
As acting court administrator, detention director, We have noticed probably in October or so that we have had issues with space for jurors. They are not fitting into our jury assembly room, which creates a lot of issues and potential conflicts. So we started looking for space, which for those of you that have been in our courthouse knows that our space is very limited. So we started looking at courtroom 10, which is currently just storage. And looking at renovating that for a second jury assembly room. And during that process of doing that, we also found, which I hadn't known about, was a space study. So we looked at expanding the current area, which would make it so that we have to move facilities, but it would all be on the same floor. And yesterday I got an estimate for that. So this is pretty much informational only. What I'm going to ask at the budget meeting in April is that we carry over our funds and put it into our capital improvement budget so that we can continue to explore this. The estimate for doing the current space and expanding it was 2.1 million. We have carryover funds of 1.3. So we're working with Jason and his team to explore our possibilities, but we need to do something before, we have issues with trials. We also don't have, our bathrooms there are not ADA compliant. So that's an issue as well that we need to look at as far as the whole renovation.
So yeah, as the court administrator said, Laura and I walked the space with her and the presiding judge last week in terms of the current assembly room. As she noted, there is space directly next door to that. That is currently we have some, I almost call it back of house type space. It's, for our facilities folks. I think the preference from what we heard from the court administrator, the presiding judge, is that we could relocate facilities. So Laura is working with our public works staff to do that, to relocate them, moving forward with the plan to, that's what we're going to do for the jury assembly room, is expand that. As part of that walkthrough, we got a much better understanding of all the space needs that they have going on in the court. So in addition to the jury assembly room, we did walk the space of courtroom 10, which they've said is an option to potentially look at for jury assembly room. That space is currently poured shell. It's not finished. So we have that space for the courtroom. The courtroom's there. There's the jury assembly room, and then the judge's chambers at the back. The public defender's office currently has the what is supposed to be, when we finish out the courtroom 10, the judge's chambers, as well as the jury assembly room for courtroom 10. The public defender already is kind of split operations. They have their space there at the municipal court, but they also have space down here on the first floor. So we've got to address some space needs for the public defender's office. As the court administrator said, we also have some other improvements we need to do in terms of ADA. So we're going to be working with all the parties here in the municipal court to address their space needs here over the coming weeks and months. As the court administrator said, there's actually going to be an item in the spring supplemental that's going to all of council to take the vacancy settings that they had last year, reappropriate that into their capital budget to begin funding some of these improvements. But we'll be coming up with a larger plan to, kind of fund all these things and fund them, probably starting with that jury assembly room as the first priority.
And the jury assembly room is the one where we need the bathrooms ADA compliant. Yeah, can we, as fast as possible, get an RFP out on that? When it was made very clear to us that our council chambers are actually ADA compliant. Some may not like how it's set up, but it is in fact ADA compliant. We have those dollars, which I think is about 608,000 left from that. So there's 608 or 678, something like that. And for a bathroom, I think it's just one stall that has to be made, with the bars and.
Well, it's you have to do the entry into the restroom has to be fully compliant. I think that's part of the problem we have right now with the space over there is you've got too many turns. You've got to go in, you have to make a hard left. I
see that as kind of a project that can potentially fit within that savings that we pulled back on for the council chambers. Since the council chambers are in fact ADA compliant, we need our court. We need our court to be ADA compliant and for these people to be able to use the restroom. So can we get an RFP going on that as soon as possible for that bathroom?
So we'll include all that in that jury thing we're working right through right now and the court administrator. So we've got the first step, which is kind of a cost estimate. What we'll do is we're working to get, I think, the design done so we can put it out to bid. So that's one of the things that we're working on right now. So we can get it out, we can get firm bids.
Okay. And the reason I asked for that is I understand that at the spring supplemental, but a lot of that money, you know, ends up coming out of the general fund or other funds. These ARPA dollars, as we all know, have to be used by 2026. So if this is a project that we know, and I know that there's a study being done on the rest of the city as to what is not ADA compliant, but if this is one that we know of right now and we can dedicate these ARPA dollars towards that, I would like to look at that. Yeah.
Is it a possibility to use the ARPA funds and the carryover funds to look at the whole project?
Sure. I mean, yeah, we can do that. We can see how much of the ARPA funds would go and then what else would, you know, what your vacancy savings were. We can look at that whole project, but because, you know, this money was set aside to fund an ADA project to begin with, which we found out doesn't actually need to happen because we are in fact ADA compliant. I wouldn't mind seeing it go to another ADA compliant program right away.
Madam Chair, a couple things. Does that have to go back to council then if we're gonna take a look at money that was appropriated then for?
We've been working on that, Mayor. We've been working on that. I've gotten the lists of, I think there's 3 different lists of pots of money that we have allocated funds, but have not spent those funds. And I think that's out of ARPA, that's out of the general fund, and then there was a third one, the capital projects fund. So we've identified that. I'm looking at all of those, and I think the plan is to confront that at the spring budget workshop, and that's going to be led by me. So yeah, yes.
Yeah, I just, Lieutenant Amsler, my apologies. I think you've done a great job on this, the photo speed enforcement issue, but I think you've been dealt an impossible hand and by virtue of the way the contract was written. So fortunately, we're going to terminate that contract.
Yeah, I agree. We agree. Okay, anything else from you?
Question about
Oh,
the
go ahead.
vacancy and maybe the spring supplemental is the place to have a conversation. I just, from our budget work, I was under the impression that the vacancy savings were being used to address staffing issues. Is that not what has ended up happening with those dollars?
So when I'll look at the court measure, I would say that typically, yes, it's probably both. I think, you know, she has probably had to utilize vacancy savings to cover overtime in terms of some of the staffing issues and as she's worked to get fully staffed. So I think the number that we're talking with her is sort of the net results of those efforts. So it includes her vacancy savings as well as any other that, you know, increased overtime, things like that.
Yeah, and the remodel that we did for the video courtroom in our back jail area, we were able to do it quite a bit less than what our initial thoughts were. I have a great IT team and they're constantly thinking of ways to, you know, do things differently. So we also didn't spend some of the money, but we are working on our staffing issues, just like everyone else has said. You know, I mean, we end up with a big pool, and by the time we get down to where, you know, after we've done the screening, people have dropped off, they're non-responsive, and you know, just getting, I think last time we started out with 13 offers and ended up with 2 actual people coming on. But we have worked with HR, we're moving things a lot quicker now. So the time from the interview to when we get them in-house, if we can get them in, has been down to about 5 weeks. So we hope that as we continue, that will help. Because the faster we move, the more likely we are to get them. And I'm also working with compensation to look at the salaries, because we lose a lot of our detention officers to other detention facilities that pay up to $30,000 more a year, which, you know, it's a huge discrepancy. And so we're looking at all of the avenues that we can to address that. And right now, we're concentrating on female staffing to get our ratios up. So we're doing that as well. So we're kind of looking at everything. It's always my intention not to have any salary savings. And I hope that we don't next year, because our staff is getting really tired working overtime. But we, have made progress. The second floor of the detention center, when needed for people that are serving sentences, is open. So we're making progress.
Thank you. Thank you for that update. 4D, Judicial Performance Commission Ordinance.
In your backup, you should have a copy of the proposed ordinance. And John Hay, who is our chairperson from this committee, is here as well, if you have any questions. But we've been trying to fill an attorney slot since I've been here, and I'm not sure how long before then. But we're running into issues because, somebody has time to serve. Sometimes they're retired, sometimes they move here and have served in or been an attorney in another state. So these proposed changes would allow us to have attorneys that are inactive and from out of state, so that we can fill this. The 2 applicants that we had, I believe we would have been able to put them in this slot if we had these changes in place. So that's what we're asking for. I don't know where John is. I thought he was behind me. There he is. I don't know if you have anything you want to add, John.
I just want to add that we operate under a very strict set of statutes. They require that we seat 3 attorneys on the commission, and preferably they need experience in criminal law. They have to be engaged in the practice of law. And this is a wording that is making it much more difficult for us to recruit attorney candidates. So we're proposing 2B right at the top there. That's the major change we're requiring. And I have with me today Conrad Huygen, our newest member. He has 25 years of experience defending and prosecuting criminal cases as a judge advocate general in the Judge Advocate General Corps of the Air Force. But we cannot seat him as an attorney because of the way the statute is written. So we want to open it up to allow us to seat people who may have an inactive bar registration because they're retired. And Conrad's going to say a few things about why this bill is important.
So again, I'm Conrad Huygen. We can maybe call this the Conrad Amendment. The practice of law should not be a life sentence for those of you who are attorneys. There is life afterwards. But I did spend a long time in the Air Force. I did start prosecuting, but then I spent 4 separate assignments as a trial defense counsel. And then I had a second career in the federal judiciary in a very small office that you probably never heard of. I was the deputy chief of the Defender Services Office in the Administrative Office of the U.S. Courts. So my office funded, trained, and supported all the federal public defenders and all the private panel attorneys who took representations under the Criminal Justice Act of 1964, a $1.2 billion program. So I bring 25 years of experience, even though I said I want to leave the practice of law behind. And there are a lot of people like me in the community, 400,000 of us, and there's a lot of talent out there. And I think this very common sense amendment will bring more talent to the table. So thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, I think this is great. Councilmember Hancock and I are both Air Force veterans. We do have a Marine in the room, but he's gotten a little soft. Little soft. So, but we do have 2 Air Force veterans. I thank you for your service. It sounds to me, this needs direction.
I think it's just, if you guys have any changes, we'll then take this to study session.
Let's take it straight. I'll take it straight to Laura.
I wonder if you could be the sponsor.
Yeah, I'd be happy to sponsor it, and let's go ahead and skip study session. And I'll take this right to the floor so we can get this moving. Don't pick up any hobbies until we get this chat.
Too late.
We're skipping a whole step to get you in here, so don't pick up any hobbies.
You're gonna want to tune into the April 8th council meeting. There you go.
Thank you guys
All
so
right,
much.
thanks for your support.
Yeah, thank you, Candace. All right, last item, public safety action plan update.
up is our staffing. Or excuse me, we'll go with crime reduction and staffing. So you kind of see here the numbers in terms of each of the different units, the vacancies we've got. Obviously, PAR is taking a big hit there. We've had to probably our biggest one in terms of where we've had to redeploy folks. You can see those numbers that are down. Go ahead and scroll down. And then the biggest thing here is you'll see our academy classes. I am very pleased to announce that we had our academy class graduate a couple weeks ago. We had 29 folks graduate. They are now out in field training. So that is, I think, a good tangible result for our patrol officers to see those folks coming through and replenishing the ranks. We have 20 some that are in the academy now and will graduate in a little bit. And then we are starting our next academy in June or July. Chief, do I have which? June. We're starting in June and we are looking for a very sizable academy to start there in June and July. So we're pleased to report those numbers. Continue to see really good numbers coming through our hiring process. So appreciate the efforts of the department, HR, and the Civil Service Commission to make sure that we're continuing to get really good numbers there. As you noted earlier, Madam Chair, we're starting to see those come through on report ranks. So, bye. Any questions on the first item?
Still have a little heartburn around the park.
I understand, ma'am.
You know, because when people call me or email me, that's the one. I mean, that's the pain point. So what are we doing about building those ranks up?
So as we get folks out of the academy, I think it's going to take us a little while to get those ranks replenished. And unfortunately, we're making the best of.
So everyone, they go through patrol,
If
then
we need people on patrol and then we can
I get it.
assign.
Yes, the priority, the patrol is the priority. And then as we get the ranks replenished, we'll relook at some of those specialty assignments. Unfortunately, right now, the chief is left with, she's trying to make the best of some bad options.
I get it. I
Yeah,
get
and
it.
I will say that, patrol is a priority. So almost all of our specialized units have vacancies. We even have a vacancy in the sheriff's office that we're not gonna fill because at this time, we're gonna carry some of that load as well. So, so this is a really good start. PAR is gonna be one of the first that we start staffing back up. There's a few that we've got to staff back up, but we've got to make sure our staffing is, overall.
Yeah, and I mean, with the PAR division, you're gonna get a battle with Mayor Knights. He wants a homeless task force division, and I want a retail task force division. So we just need to get these people graduated out of this academy.
I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited about this department though, because, we've been doing, everybody's been asked to do more with less.
We know.
And despite that, the amazing job that everybody's doing, just imagine what we're gonna be able to do when we get fully staffed.
Yeah.
Oh,
And that's super.
we know.
Oh, we know. It's,
We know.
Preach it to the choir.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about that. But again, I always keep my eyeballs on what the constituents are, preferring us on, because what they see is when I want to be able to have a relationship and I don't know who that is. And when things are going on, I need you to do it right now.
Let's schedule a meeting because most, if not all of Ward 4 is in District 2. Can we get a meeting scheduled with her and Mark Sears?
District 1.
And Officer Spitzer, we've been talking
No,
about it.
I live in Chambers.
It's gonna be 1 and 2. It's split. So it's 1 and.
No, it's 3 and 2.
Everything inside 225 is District 1.
My restaurants are in District 3. I know this for a fact.
It sounds cool.
And across the street is District 2.
Everything inside of inside of 225.
Yeah, Officer Spitzer is my
Officer Spitzer,
It's my part.
do you want a meeting with
Yeah,
him?
oh, we talk on a regular.
There you go.
I got him on speed dial.
There we go. There we go. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna get these special.
Oh, yeah.
duties assignments built up. I know we will.
And it was great going to the graduation a few weeks ago, seeing those young people, going across the aisle, and the gal who did the commencement speech. She was amazing, and I know they're going to do a fantastic job. And if we keep getting these, 30, 40, dare I say 50 people in these classes, you're going to be killing it. So keep up the good work, guys.
When do you think that we'll actually close the gap?
So that's gonna depend on our, people leaving. So it's gonna, you know, with just the people leaving is gonna make a big impact. So slowing that down is the key.
I was, go out with patrol once a month, ride one. And so last time I was with him, we responded, or the officer responded to, a non-injury accident, but one of the parties didn't want to give the insurance information over to the other party until an officer showed up. So we showed up. And then fortunately, we were relieved by, a civilian traffic accident investigator. So I know there's a 2017 study that basically outlined the different positions that officers were doing that really didn't require an officer. Do you know where we're at in that process?
So, there's, I can't tell you specifically where we're at, but we are tracking positions that we have, things that we have where we have a sworn officer doing, that we could have a civilian doing. So we're putting that list together now.
And remember in this year's budget, we had we actually did nothing but civilian ads, and many of those were direct replacements for folks that currently had uniforms either assigned to or would have assigned a uniform officer if we had the bodies. And so there was a number of ads in this year's budget, and it's something that the department continues to, make progress. Okay. So we'll scroll down real quick. So this next one is our training. You kind of see there, good news is we had to do some in-service training for our field training officers because they're about to get a lot of field trainees. So big focus on that. You kind of see the rest of it. So some significant crisis response team training and briefing. So again, appreciate the work they're doing. And then you kind of see the rest of them. As a quick heads up, we are have our first big in-service training for the department for patrol since we've gone through our new shift bid schedule. So that you're gonna start to see in future things, you're gonna start to see some significant in-service training. Can you talk a little bit about that, Chief?
Yeah, so we're actually starting our anti-bias training for the officers. It's required on the consent decree. So we started that this week. And I believe we finished that up in mid-May. And then we'll be continuing with, other training as well. But that's a big, is getting that training completed.
So the way we've done scheduling now allows us to, block that out, know when those days are, and that they can resource it, train. So we're excited for that. Okay, scrolling down to the second item on the plan is our crime numbers. You can kind of see that here. You can kind of see that we're making good progress on non-fatal shootings, robbery, and motor vehicle theft. We did have, unfortunately, some murders in the last few weeks, and we are making progress. The department's put out. We've made some arrests in those cases. And so, Chief, anything to add on those pieces?
Specifically, one of the things that we're doing in terms of staffing is that we are identifying cases that we can and can't work. And obviously the violent crime is a major piece. And so making sure that even though we're short-staffed, that there's certain units like the gun violence suppression team, that they remain fully staffed so that we can, and of course, major crimes, homicide as well, so that we can, address make cases and put people in jail. So the non-violent crime, that's going to take that's not going to take priority over making sure that we have fully staffed in the violent crime areas.
Next one is our youth violence efforts. And so go ahead.
Good morning, Austin Burdett, Youth Violence. So outside of the numbers and success stories you see on the screen, we're working on a dashboard for our Aurora Save program to highlight some of those outcomes. We're also working on an end-of-year report for our NOFO grantees to showcase what they've done in the past year. That cycle ends at the end of June. And then since Joseph has left, Andrea Wright, our community engagement coordinator, has taken over as the interim YPP manager until it's been filled. Any questions?
I guess Joseph, but that's about all I've got.
You got to see some nice success stories there. You guys can read those in the backup. For sake of time, we'll keep moving on item 4. We have our crisis response team. So there we go. Go ahead, Danny.
Tassan, Crisis Intervention Program Manager. You can see the numbers there. I'm happy to report we have filled the vacancy on our crisis response team. As you remember from our last report, one of our crisis response team clinicians moved to AMRT. And so now we are fully staffed on CRT again. We do have 2 community training series coming up in the next month. We have one on the 28th, which talks about the parents' role in mass violence prevention. And then on April 4th, we have an individual who tells his own personal story of how he almost went down that pathway. So very impactful events. Hope to see you there at 6 p.m. at Central Library on those dates.
And just real quick, actually, I did the Ward 5 town hall 2 nights ago. And we did get some questions about what are we doing to send, clinicians on calls and take our officers on calls. So there's many in the community that still don't know about this program. I expect an email. Her and I do the Ward 4 town halls together. We get a pretty good turnout. We'd love to have a presentation from you and a full explanation of the program.
Certainly.
Sounds great. Yeah,
Thank you, Council.
great.
Okay, so then, for the final one is our, homeless, efforts, and so.
I'm over here.
When you're moving around. All right, there.
I know, I'm always hiding. All right, Emma Knight, Manager of Homeless Division. You can see the numbers up there. The notifications received is pretty standard. That's around what we're getting generally, and same with the amount of abatements. We're usually in or around that number. I would say the 0 number for CDOT related abatements was a little odd for us, but I think that just speaks to how often we've been getting out to those locations and abating those camps that are on CDOT property, that folks seem to be moving on from those a little bit. And yeah, I think we've been getting way less complaints about our Bermuda Triangle at 225 in Parker. We're out there once, often twice a week. So that area has, I think, really gotten a lot cleaner, and we're not seeing as many folks there. Even when there is a camp, they're much smaller at this point in that location. And yeah, we had 14 folks go to pallets, and the 0 to Comitis, which is pretty standard as well. Yeah, any questions?
Are we doing anything to ramp up for the warmer months coming? Are we, do we have staff in place? Are we looking to hire another? What are we doing to prepare for the warmer months?
We don't really ramp up much. It's pretty much same as always. We don't have plans to hire any new staff at the moment.
Okay.
I will say we get a little bit more access to Keeson, our contracted cleaners, because they're not having to deal with snow removal, which is also what they're doing during the winter. So that's one less thing we're having to deal with that.
Okay. Mayor, do you have anything on this?
Well, how are we doing with Raccoon County in that area for the triangle?
Haven't heard any complaints from my staff about them not working with us, and as you've seen, it's been cleaner over there, so I think it's been going well.
And how about that little part that abuts Denver on the
Oh, with like the RTD station
southbound?
over there, and
Yeah, that goes on to I-225 south.
I haven't heard any complaints about that area either. Yeah.
Good.
It actually looks good. I drive by there frequently, and I'm looking to see when it's gonna start. There's 1, then there's 5, and then there's a whole mob of people. And for the past month or so, it's been clean, which is really great, especially by where Bridge House is, that area. So it's been pretty clean.
So she's down there with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, Emma.
That's it for the.
Miscellaneous matters for consideration. Fire, I don't know if you want to give an update, but Hunter Hackbarth, welcome back.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you back.
I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. Do you have anything you would like to say?
Yeah, if I could give a couple of quick March highlights.
Sure.
I appreciate it.
Sure.
First, Deputy Chief Alan Robinette was recently recognized by Black employees for Better Aurora with the prestigious 2024 Legend Award for his extraordinary leadership and service as a role model in the organization, City of Aurora, and the African-American community. His career spans 35 very prestigious years and is one of our most tenured members, and we're very thrilled that the organization gave him that recognition.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, and I think recognition spans far beyond the African community, African American community. I know that we all appreciate you. You are appreciated across the board.
You are embarrassing the heck out of him.
Why?
He does not like the recognition. I
Well-
think we barely got him out of his seat to acknowledge the award. He is not comfortable with that, but he is a very critical leader for the department.
Across the board, you are respected.
Thank you.
Yes.
Warfare is excited to announce that we have 4 new engines coming into the fleet. Tentatively, it looks like they're gonna go to stations 2, 6, 7, and 9. So we're working with fleet to make sure they're upfitted and ready to get on the road.
Wait a minute, is 9-1 we're rebuilding?
Yes, ma'am.
And they're getting a brand new truck, huh? And a brand new.
And a brand new building?
station.
They're trying to take the title.
Okay.
They're trying to take the title from Station 5 as the sort of, preferred station. All the good stuff.
Okay.
Shiny and new.
Yeah.
Which leads us to Station 9. So we're looking at a fall replacement of Station 9. The city did a facility assessment. That station was built in 1979 and really lacked adequate space for today's workforce needs and to accommodate potentially the needs of the number of firefighters we need to put in there. After the city looked at it and saw the shifting soils and the issues bring it up to code, they decided to rebuild it using ARPA money.
Yeah.
Conceptually, it'll be a 2-story, 12,000 square foot firehouse with 11 dorm rooms, 8 bathrooms, and double deep 3-day apparatus garage, which really helps us accommodate some of our storage needs. So making sure we have proper storage for the fire apparatus and making sure we have good accommodations for all members on the department. And we're hoping that this construction will start this fall. Station 9 will be relocated to another firehouse, but they will be responding back in to cover their area. We'll move around to make sure we have good coverage. Scope limitation, currently 29 paramedics have requested scope limitation to EMT basic. Of the 236 paramedics that we have, 25 of the 29 came from either the engineer or the officer ranks. So they were in a promoted position. So only 4 paramedics, and I believe all 4, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, back behind me. Those 4 were very senior medics too, that had been medics for a long time in New York. No?
50-50.
Okay.
Medics, the rest were senior.
How many? I'm sorry.
29 of the 200
Scope. So they're with us.
Oh, I know. Oh, and I know why. It's just really a shame that this is what this has come to over political persecution, but go ahead.
With that number, we still are in a strong position to make sure we have paramedics on each suppression unit and that we have good ALS coverage, even with people off right now, good ALS coverage across the city. We're in the final stages of picking a community medical services pre-hospital educator. Those interviews should be wrapped up shortly and we'll be excited to announce who will fill that position. Edward Manzo was hired as the community educator. His focus will be working on community risk assessment based on NFPA 1300. He brings a master's degree in education and some vast teaching and educational experiences to the department. And finally, AFR is going to collaborate with APD and CCA on seeing if there's a fire service opportunity in the cadet program. And then we also have a current strong tie with CCA's fire science program. They work with the fire department. They rent some space from us or use some space.
Yeah, I was gonna say, cause we just got the police cadet program going with CCA. And the reason that I didn't even look at fire is because it was my understanding that fire already has a relationship with CCA and some sort of a program.
It's more than this, like he's saying, it's more of a space and thing like that. We don't have a cadet program, although it's something I know the Chief Otten has brought up. He would like to look at hiring that same program. So
I'm happy. Maybe I misunderstood that. I went after the police one, but I am happy to get involved in the fire one. I thought we already had something in place with CCA for fire, but.
Chief's excited about this opportunity.
Okay.
The current director for CCA has a long history of hiring former Aurora fire members to lead their program. So usually that relationship is super strong. We're excited to set up those meetings and kind of have those conversations of how do we work together
Okay, yeah.
to not only build out a cadet program potentially, but have a potentially good hiring stream into AFR. They have some outstanding recruits. I've had the opportunity to teach there. It'd be nice to be able to bring some of them into our organization.
Oh, great. Okay, great. Well, we'll, I will certainly look at that. Let's see what we can do there. We can do something similar like what we just did with the police. That would be great. Okay. Did you have anything else?
I'm gonna put them on the spot real quick. So just for you all, I think given that the recent snow was very welcome, got things wet down here, which is nice, but we are still heading into wildfire season. So we'll probably get a queue up to the department, ask them maybe for April or May. We know you all get a lot of questions from your homeowners about our wildland interface. So what we'll do is we'll maybe come back in April or May if you're okay with it, give you an update on our wildland fire program, what we're doing to prepare, some of the new equipment that they're bringing on, and just, you know, what we're doing to keep our community safe, if that's okay with you all.
Yeah, that'd be great. Great.
That's
Okay.
good. That's good. Okay.
I have something that I wanted to bring up. I attended a force review board and some issues, some notes that I'm sorry, we attended it together. My apologies. Some issues that we have going on that we need made clear between the PD, 911 and fire. Please weigh in on your thoughts on this. But first, we need a clear understanding. We had an incident that escalated very, very quickly, but it involved some officers that were on their way to an honor guard presentation. They're honor guard officers, so obviously when they're doing their honor guard duties, they don't have body worn cam on them. They don't have a taser on them. They don't have any protection on them whatsoever. But a felony happening right in front of them, it is their instinct to jump in and help. And they didn't really know at that point what they should do, because it could have been something that could have been life threatening to other folks in Aurora. But again, they didn't have a body worn camera on them. So if we could get some direction for our honor guard officers, you know, because crime doesn't happen in a bubble. So something could happen in front of them. What should they do? They just need some direction. Do they jump in and risk a violation for not having a body worn camera on them? Or do they sideline until someone else can get there? And you don't need to give me that answer right now. They just would like that direction.
I'll follow up with that.
Yeah, please. Then we need a better communication system when there is an emergency like this going on that has escalated. I mean, this one escalated extremely fast and just could have hurt a lot of people in Aurora. And we're having patching problems. We're not patching to Denver. And sometimes we have folks that are driving Aurora, Denver, whether it's a police chase, a butcher, whatever is going on. And we are not patching Denver to be able to communicate with Denver. We also are not patching citywide. So when there is an emergency going on in District 1, which can also flow through the other districts, 2 and 3 are in the dark and have no idea what's going on. And the only ones hearing it is 1. And the other one is, and again, fire, I don't know, you guys have your emergencies. I don't know how you would like to handle this piece. But when there is an emergency like this, instead of having, when it escalates to a certain level, and you guys can decide what that level is of an emergency, but instead of having a 911 dispatch operator kind of quarterback the whole situation, it is the request that we get, you know, a higher ranking, I think sergeant or above on the PD side. Fire, if you think this would be helpful for you, but to switch to a different channel, to have a whole separate dedicated channel when an emergency is going on, and get a sergeant or above on the call dispatching at that point, and communicating hopefully citywide and patching with Denver, and have someone in the PD or the fire dispatching instead of one of our 911 dispatch operators. That's kind of the request. I don't know what that looks like. I am just sharing the feedback that was made very, very quickly, because obviously a 911 operator isn't a firefighter, isn't a police officer. They call out for help, they get whoever dispatched, but when it's an active foot chase, car chase, something like that, it seems to be a little bit of a struggle to have the 911 dispatcher quarterbacking that.
And I don't disagree. So my thought on this is a couple of things, just in my assessment of how within the city of Aurora, we're utilizing the radio system, and then the policies and frameworks of decision-making that govern those things. So coming from a state agency where interoperability and scaling up and down and patching was a common way of life within 64 counties in the state, and having to connect with and rely on other agencies to assist. I can confidently say that with comprehensive framework, decision-making and policy in place that governs the use of those channels and deciding when to patch and who needs to be a part of that unified command, and then how you scale it up and down. It's my assessment that that piece is an area of improvement across the city. So one of the conversations that we've engaged in Aurora 911 is developing and then introducing for our partners a comprehensive framework of how that's navigated.
Yeah.
Because I think in the middle of an emergency, without the framework, we tend to let our adrenaline or what's happening influence or inform our decisions. And when that happens, sometimes it's inconsistent from time to time, and from acuity level to acuity level. Whereas if we had that in place, and then the training and reinforcement of that to develop the muscle memory, and everyone was on the same page about how you scale up and what to expect, that piece would become far less complicated. So I just think that we don't have clarity of direction and how to leverage that framework. And I do believe that a communication specialist is equipped to facilitate it. But I think what's happening is there's an opportunity to develop a process for unified command to alert to how to congregate and then how to disseminate information. The problem with patching is that when we bring channels together, we're creating one super talk group. And so because we have like the influx of additional things coming in.
I listened to a body, I listened to a call where officers, I mean, you want to talk about emotions getting involved. They needed help. They were screaming for help. They were begging for help, and other officers are still calling in a traffic stop and whatever. And finally one officer said, clear this effing line now. I mean, that's how panicked it is getting. So I guess that's my point. Maybe IT, I don't know if you guys can, I don't know if this is an IT thing. I don't really know where we go with this.
I think it's really a policy.
When we get to a point where it is an emergency, it is an active emergency like this, we need a dedicated line, a dedicated channel that goes citywide. And I think fire absolutely needs to be included, whether it's a fire or not, because we have our medics. We need a dedicated line. I mean, the calls that I've listened to are very scary for our officers when they can't even get on the radio because every other crime going on in the city is being called in. Right.
I think that we can work together.
That would be great.
Simple thing.
That would be great. Yeah, and if it's that direction you're looking for, I'm confident that most of council would stand behind that. So maybe if you all could get together, but when it escalates, you guys decide what that level it is that it escalates to, but when it escalates to a certain level, they have got to have their own line. They have got to have their own line to talk about it. So that was all I had. Does anybody else have anything else for miscellaneous matters? Max Levy, our next Shop with a Cop is July 20th. Sure hope to see you there so you can see the hundreds and hundreds of Aurora children get their school supplies and school clothing that they would not otherwise get if it wasn't for the Aurora Police Association. And with that, our next meeting is going to be April 11th, 9 a.m. in this room. See y'all later.